Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are back in business. The One Piece War. It didn't feel real for a second because it's been a 1 month break. We are back in business. And this chapter, whoo, my goodness. A few good men, but we'll get to that soon enough. If you don't know, now you know. Check out my full live stream reaction to this chapter on my Cole Requiem channel, numero uno, for the full stream, and of course on twitch.tv. And number 2, for the anime reaction content, One Piece and other shows as well, go to the Kingu-san channel as well, link in the box below. Check it out for that fun stuff. Now, this chapter, first of all, obviously you guys already know by now, but if you don't know, just in case, we break this down into 3 main parts: the pacing, the character, and the story components of this chapter. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and the overall final chapter rating for this chapter. So, this chapter, man, watch my first take too, in this corner here. Watch my first take, because the agendas that I have are going sky high, and there's no sign of them slowing down. I promise you that. Now, let's get into this chapter full bore, step by step and piece by piece. First of all, the chapter pacing. This chapter has a total of 4 parts. The Flower Capital section is number 1. Number 2 is the fight outside of Flower Capital. Number 3 is at sea, in the waters near Wano Country, in lockstep with a SHANKS flashback. And number 4 is going to be the Navy headquarters in the New World. And this is also in conjunction with a town rallying behind SABO's image. So the pacing is actually pretty good for this chapter. Parts 2 through 4 are well paced, and they do break the chapter very neatly, very orderly. Each of those parts aren't rushed at all for this part, which is very good, because a lot of times we get like the 7+, 8+ parts of the chapter and we're all over the place. But in this chapter, these 4 parts, for the most part, are broken down very neatly. So I do absolutely like the pace and flow of this chapter. But when it comes to structure, it is relatively weird at the beginning. Where at the beginning, the scabbards just kind of pop up in front of Aramaki. They're just there, and we only get one panel at the very beginning of the chapter where they're just somehow notified, or they just somehow know that an enemy is approaching. So again, the pace was great, but I only have one issue, and that's like the structure at the very beginning of the chapter, where it just seems kind of rushed, like they just instant transmission from a green bull. That's a bit strange. But outside of that, again, the pacing is muy bueno, very good. Now, number 2 is going to be the character components for this chapter. And kicking it off is going to be the champion of the Admirals, Aramaki, aka Green Bull. His ability is officially, according to this translation, the Woods fruit, which of course is the forest fruit in the scans, which makes him a woodsman. It's pretty weird, but he is a woodsman with the woods fruit. Like the sea, his ability is one of the sources of life in the world, which probably explains, at its root, no pun intended, but it probably explains what I was talking about in the last chapter review, the chapter review for 1053, where he has the ability to affect the life or the lack of life in the environment around him, and so the dead wastelands are now starting to blossom with life. It's a very similar thing to Ace on Drum Island, where Ace, just by existing on Drum Island, a place that normally never stops snowing, all of a sudden, for a few days, stops snowing. Just because Ace existed. The Logia tend to affect the environment around them in very unique ways, and Aramaki is doing exactly that to the wastelands of Wano Country. Now, we have seen before in the last chapter too, how he can bind people by using wood and vines and that kind of stuff, and also by making these wooden stakes with his fingers and actually penetrating someone's skin to absorb their moisture. And in this chapter, we see him, in a sense, become a living forest. He can control and make enough tree trunk to wrap around Momonosuke's whole body in giant dragon form, which is fairly impressive considering how big Momonosuke should be in that form. And also, since he's a Logia, when Momo bites into him, it does no damage because there's no Haki involved in that bite. He is a Logia, I think, in the same vein as someone like Aokiji, where both Aokiji and Aramaki are solid-based Logia, where they're intangible despite their molecular composition being of a solid, not a liquid or a gas or energy like Kizaru or NL would be. But like with all Logia, he can be hurt with Haki, and we see Yamato do just that. And after taking damage by that Yamato bonk, he does acknowledge the power of her Haki. So at this point in time, Aramaki seemingly relies a lot on these wood and vine based attacks. There is a chance that since he's a forest, he can have a plethora of forest oriented type attacks. Like for example, Mushiru in the One Piece movie number 9, the 9th movie, Wappo's older brother. He could control poison spores via his mushroom fruit. So something like that could be, in theory, possible with Aramaki's abilities because a mushroom is just a part of a forest. Now, going to more so his character, Green Bull's sense of justice is put on display, and he views the celestial dragons as gods of the world. It might be more literal from his viewpoint, potentially, but at this point in time, we're not too sure. And countries that are not affiliated with the world government have no human rights. Discrimination creates solace, and humanity can only progress forward by labeling those who are inferior, so those who aren't inferior can look down on them as less than. That maintains solace, peace, and stability throughout human history from his viewpoint. This mindset is actually very similar to what we see in the Goa Kingdom during the ASL flashback, where the nobles in the High Town and the Royal Palace looked down on the folks of the Great Terminal to the point where they had no issue at all completely burning the Great Terminal down and killing many people just to impress a world noble that was coming to visit. So Green Bull's sense of justice might be founded on some sense of classism, since non-affiliated world government countries can have thousands of people die by his own hands, and it's not a big deal to him whatsoever. And if he does believe in earnest, that the Tenryubito, celestial dragons, are actual gods, then for him, this order may be natural order. So for the time being, I'm going to say he has JCJ, which is Jim Crow justice, and we'll call it a damn day for the time being with Aramaki. That's number one. Number two, Momonosuke. Momonosuke is fighting alongside the Scabbards against an invader into their lands, and that shows that the courage he's gained over the course of the entire post-time skip is maintaining itself. Furthermore, as the Shogun of Wano Country and as Luffy's friend, he has a sense of duty to protect them all, which is probably the core reason why he didn't open the borders of Wano Country just yet, to protect his people. I have noted to this before in the past in other reviews, but Momonosuke's mindset is very similar to the ancient Kozuki family, the ones that isolated the country in the first place. He is protecting the people of Wano Country from outside forces. And it just so happens we have an outside force in the face of Green Bull trying to kill thousands of their people and take Luffy. That's not going to happen, especially when he just became Shogun. These are his lands now, and he will defend them personally, which is probably the reason why he tells Yamato to not fight. Yamato is part of the group of people that saved this country, and it is very, very likely that she is going to join the crew, if not has already joined the crew. So that's number two, Momonosuke-kun. Number three, Yasopp. Ha! Yasopp is like Usopp in a way, where he has a little chicken, just a little bit of cowardice in him, since he's not mentally ready yet to actually see his son at this point in time. Number four is SHANKS. Shanks is actually interested in the One Piece treasure itself. This is a major, major deal since for the entire series so far, we were never sure if Shanks himself was actually interested in the One Piece or not. However, we are still not sure why Shanks wants to claim the One Piece now. It only seems to be after reminiscing and pondering about Luffy and what's going on now he's aiming for it. But again, we have no idea why. Why would it matter that Luffy being in this position, why would that matter for Shanks to not aim for the One Piece? So theories are coming. Absolutely, make no mistake, theories and streams are coming. If you want to watch those streams, where do you go? Cole Requiem channel. Link in the box below once again. And of course, twitch.tv, the place for all your streaming needs. Absolutely. Now, a very important note here when it comes to Shanks. A very important note. It is still unclear if Shanks knew that the Gomu Gomu fruit was the Nika ability. That is, I'm saying one more time. It is still unclear, very unclear actually, if Shanks actually knew that the Gomu Gomu no ability was the Nika ability. Specifically, that Nika godlike ability. That is all Shanks' character component for this chapter. Now, after that is a guy called Tensei. Tensei Kurama, or Black Horse, a new character. He is the director of the Naval Bureau of Investigation. Basically, of course, as you can tell, he's the head of the FBI in the One Piece world. A very rational and level-headed guy who appears to be just as tall as Akainu and Kizaru. He also has a moniker, which is actually in the same vein as the Admirals. So you have Red Dog, Akainu, Purple Tiger, Fujitora, Yellow Monkey, Kizaru, Green Bull, Amaraki, and now you have Black Horse, Tensei. So this might hint at his skills outside of his intelligence gathering capabilities. And then finally we have SABO. SABO is getting a huge character portrayal boost. Off screen, but nonetheless, it's an astronomical boost. So because of SABO's actions at the Holy Land, many folks across the world are now starting to worship SABO like a god. Like a god. And SABO now has a new moniker, which is officially the Flame Emperor, which of course means Entei, which of course is the final attack that Ace used against Blackbeard. And that is the overall character component for this chapter. And now finally we have the story components for this chapter. Groundbreaking, shocking, jaw-dropping, few good men action. Sounds kind of weird when I say it that way, but it doesn't matter. That's not important. Number one here, Green Bull versus Denjiro, Raizo, Shinobu, Inu, Neko, Kawamatsu, Yamato, and Momonosuke, but minus Yamato, depending on if she listens to Momo's words or not, because Momo wants Yamato to bounce. It appears that Momonosuke, as a Shogun of Wano country, him and his men will defend his lands from any invaders. And Yamato was part of the Savior clique, along with Monkey D. Luffy. And we also get to see more of Green Bull's abilities. That's all number one. Number two. Shanks. Shanks, the God King, is near Wano country. We see his officers, Beckman, Rue, Yasop, Lime Juice, Bung Punch, Monster, Hongo, and Howling Gabe with him. And they are just chilling by the waters of Wano country. There's also a few new henchmen, plus Monkey. That are like a really savage looking monkey that are talking about Luffy. And ironically, it's the monkey that is talking about how Luffy is a savage ape. Oh, it's kind of fun like that sometimes. And I don't think we've ever seen those guys ever in the story. So those guys are probably new Shanks henchmen. So, very important here. Look at me.
I'm the captain now.
Very important here. okay?
Okay.
The Viz makes it clearer than the scans do that Shanks is not actually going to be going to Wano country itself. Yasopp, when he's talking about Usopp, he says the words, "Wait, let's not disembark," which isn't a let's go to Curry and grab something and not see Usopp. No. It's let's not go to Wano country point blank, period. He used the word disembark. And then Shanks also says, I'm not interested in seeing Luffy. I'm not planning to have a reunion with Luffy here, like what the scans say. So based on the scans, you get that sense that Shanks could be aiming for something specific in Wano country, like let's say, for example, a road poneglyph, Pluton, whatever it could be. But you do not get that sense at all, when you read the official Viz translation. So it seems, based on the official Viz translation, it seems that Shanks is really just in this area by happenstance. He's just here. Particularly the line about Bartolomeo and handling that issue also backs up the idea that Shanks is not going to Wano country because they have to spank Bartolomeo. So I won't say 100% that Shanks isn't coming to Wano country, but it seems very, very unlikely that Shanks is going to be setting foot in Wano country, especially when you read the Viz Media translation. Now, continuing down that road, the Shanks flashback of when he first got the Gomu Gomu clears up some details, but it's still very unclear, once again, it's still very unclear if Shanks knew about the Nika ability. Who's Who just speculates on why Shanks and his crew are attacking their ship, but Shanks himself, or any of his own crew members for that matter, don't say anything that would indicate that they knew about the Nika ability. And by this point, the whole world has already seen the new picture of Luffy for his wanted poster, and yet nothing is still being said directly about the Nika by Shanks or any of his crew members. So it's still unclear. It is what it is. But on top of all of that, Shanks himself is on the move to get the One Piece. That in of itself is an absolutely astronomical play, and it changes, you can argue, the foundation of the story moving forward now that Shanks himself is going to be going to try and get the One Piece. Because now more than ever, Shanks seems to be a genuine rival towards Luffy, aiming for the very thing that so many pirates across the world seek to get. So there are so many things and so many takes that you can imply from this, but I'm going to save that for future videos and of course future streams. But remember that Shanks does have a leg up on most people since he was almost at the finish line with Roger to reach the final island. He does have that advantage. Story, next one here. SABO is accused of killing King Cobra. Big play here. So what a lot of folks have been saying now for quite some time, for a lot of years now, has come to pass. Yes, SABO has taken the blame for killing King Cobra, and it's very likely that he did not actually kill King Cobra. As Tensei explains, SABO killing Cobra is a big deal for the Rev, since the Nefertari family are the only ones among the 20 founding families of the world government itself to live amongst the common people, completely and utterly antithetical to the way of life that the current world nobles have. As Gonfo Gorosei said in chapter 908, they are traitors. The Nefertari family, according to Gonfo Gorosei, therefore all the Gorosei, they are traitors. So the enemy of my enemy is my friends, probably in the eyes of the Rev. However, this actually winds up being a double whammy against the world government and the Navy, because even though the Rev themselves may not have actually wanted to kill King Cobra because he could have been an ally, since him and his family are the traitors among the 20 founding families to other common people across the world, the Nefertari family is still among those 20 founding families that founded the world government, the very government that they despise and that they hate. So SABO killing Cobra is actually part of the rallying cry for so many common people across the world that are now worshiping SABO like a god. And it's very likely that the CP0 agents or the Gorosei probably set up something with SABO and Nefertari Cobra to blame him for the death of Cobra. And if that's the case, then it seems to have backfired on a catastrophic level. But if let's say the off chance, if SABO did kill Cobra, it's probably due to an accident, something he would definitely not intend to do, without a doubt. And then also, this does give us a lot more context as to why people who knew SABO, like Koala or Makino or Dadan, were crying when they heard the news, because they found out that he was alive for the first time, but at the same time, he was also being accused of murdering a king. But we're not done with SABO just yet. Continuing down the story elements of this chapter, SABO and a few good men destroy what looks like a statue of the celestial dragon Hoof, which is a declaration of war very similar to what Luffy and Usopp did at Enies Lobby. This might be the actual key rallying moment for the entire world, since that symbol has been one of fear across the entire planet. But then moving forward, SABO and these few good men fought Fujitora and Aramaki, who led the Marines into battle, according to the Viz translation, who led the Marines into battle against SABO and the few good men. And this idea of actual combat is also reinforced by Blackbeard in chapter 925, where he notes to the captains of the Rev fighting against the Navy admirals. And we also know that Fujitora suffered injuries as a result of that fight in chapter 958. However, despite the admiral's efforts, SABO and the rest of the captains of the Rev save their boy Kuma and escape. This is a massive Navy blunder. And now entire nations are revolting against the oppressive world government system. Specifically, 8 have been noted to. The 8 Nation Revolution. And what we see at the end of this chapter is probably one of these nations. And we see various flags that are strung up around the platform. And some of these flags and banners may be the symbols of these countries, but at the same time, a lot of these flags are very interesting, where one looks like the Shimosuke clan emblem of Wano country, where it's 2 swords crossing. So what's up with that? Like, maybe there are other pockets of Shimosuke that live elsewhere in the world, and one of these countries is actually rallying behind SABO. Another one of these flags is the world government symbol that has an arrow going through the core of it. That's pretty hostile. And then on top of that, you have another flag that actually looks like SABO's old Jolly Roger, with the S in front of the crossbones, but this time it's an X in front of the S. So it looks very similar, but I guess not the exact same flag as SABO's old Jolly Roger. But once again, this blunder has led to 8 nations in complete revolt. And the result of SABO and a few good men has now deemed SABO to be the Flame Emperor, and his influence, because Amaraki and Fujitora failed to capture a single Rev captain. Not only is he deemed the Flame Emperor, but also SABO's influence might be on par or greater than that of Monkey D. Dragons. That means that in the future, if something happens to Monkey D. Dragon, SABO can replace him, and the momentum of the entire revolutionary army will still be just as strong. Massive Navy blunder. Huge. And finally, for story, Vivi has gone missing. My girl. One of the top 5 best girls in One Piece is gone. She's gone. With King Cobra dead and Vivi missing, the ships of Alabasta, or I guess in this case Arabasta, haven't left the Red Port. This is, I think, I'm putting my money into it, 1,000,000% a SABO rescued her situation from Imu, or Imu actually has Vivi held hostage. She is captured somewhere on the Holy Land. I am dead set on those 2 options. SABO has her, or it's Imu. One of those 2. That is it. Ha! That is it for the overall story components for this chapter. So there's a lot for this chapter, clearly. In terms of story, huge, gargantuan. And of course, for character, there's some there too. And pacing was muy bueno. I have a huge bias for this chapter because it pushes my agendas so strongly on so many fronts in astronomical ways, baby. So, SABO and A Few Good Men, honest to God, in the near future, may be genuine merchandise. Yes, and you have to respect it. It's been a while since your boys done merch. We have to get back on that bandwagon. And SABO is the guy to kick it off. And honestly, pacing-wise, it was smooth. Outside the beginning of the chapter, it was smooth. It was really nice. And character-wise, finding out, not fully, of course, things about Shanks, Aramaki, and so on and so forth. Very good stuff. And honestly, Momonosuke continues to be a very good character. Momonosuke, I think, is actually, I would argue, he's better written than even Doflamingo. I'll say it again. I would argue that Momonosuke is better written than Doflamingo. He's a very damn good written character, without a doubt. And this chapter just continues that trend for Momo's sake. So, outside of one pacing issue, I dig this chapter for the sake of A Few Good Men, whether it's Momo's boys or Sabo's boys. I'm gonna roll out with a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Though honestly, considering the Shanks greatness and Shanks going for the One Piece, may have to bump that up to a 9.5.